Welcome to Truth Behind History. This is the channel where we dive deep into the moments that shaped our world, unpacking stories from the past and uncovering the truths you might not have learned in school. Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating and misunderstood structures in history, feudalism. Feudalism. It sounds complicated, right? But don't worry, by the end of this video, you'll see how it shaped medieval Europe and why it still sparks so much debate among historians today. So, grab your metaphorical armor, and let's embark on this journey. To start, let's clear the air. What exactly is feudalism? At its core, it's a decentralized political and economic system that emerged in Europe after the fall of the Roman Empire. Picture this, a society that doesn't revolve around a single strong central government but instead depends on a series of mutual obligations. Landowners, known as lords, granted parcels of land, or fiefs, to those willing to provide military service or labor. It was like a big, medieval chain of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. So, where did this system come from? It wasn't something people just woke up and invented. It developed in the chaos of the 9th and 10th centuries, when Europe faced wave after wave of invasions, Vikings from the north, Magyars from the east, and Muslims from the south. With kings unable to protect vast territories, local lords stepped in to provide stability and defense. And why was it so important? Feudalism was the duct tape holding society together. In fragmented, war-torn regions, it created a system of governance and defense that kept life moving. In exchange for loyalty and service, people got land to live on, protection from threats, and, most importantly, order. Now, let's break down the structure of feudal society. Imagine a pyramid, with the king sitting on top. Beneath him were the lords, then the knights, and finally the serfs at the bottom. Each tier relied on the one above it while also supporting the one below. The king might have been the figurehead of the realm, but his power depended heavily on the loyalty of the lords. These lords managed large estates, or fiefs, and pledged their allegiance to the king. In return, they got protection and authority over their land. Knights, the next level, were the muscle of the system. They swore to protect the land and enforce the law. But their lifestyle wasn't just about jousting and tournaments, it involved serious responsibility and dangerous battles. At the very bottom were the serfs. These were the people who made the whole system work. They farmed the land, provided food, and upheld the local economy, all while living under the protection of their lord. It wasn't glamorous, but it was their reality. In a way, feudalism was like a precarious game of Jenga. Take out one piece, and the whole system could collapse. Here's where feudalism gets formal: contracts. Yes, even in the medieval world, paperwork, well, metaphorical paperwork, was king. The feudal contract was essentially an agreement between a lord and a vassal. It went something like this: the lord granted land, a fief, in exchange for services. The vassal took an oath of loyalty called homage, promising to provide military aid or other support. In return, the lord offered protection and the right to use the land. The process of granting this land, known as investiture, was highly ceremonial. It wasn't just about land, it was about trust and mutual benefit. And if you're wondering how we know all this, documents like the Domesday Book give us detailed records of who owned what and what they owed. Medieval record-keeping might have been messy, but it was thorough. Now, let's talk about knights. You know, the shiny armor, the gallant rescues, and the unwavering honor. But how much of that was real? Well, knights were certainly important in feudalism. They served as vassals to the lords, providing military protection and enforcing local laws. But the romanticized chivalric code, a set of virtues like bravery, loyalty, and honor, was often more fiction than fact. Sure, knights were expected to uphold these ideals, but in practice, many acted out of self-interest. Land disputes, personal feuds, and outright greed often led knights to fight for personal gain rather than noble causes. So, while the idea of chivalry makes for great stories, the historical reality was much more complicated. Knights weren't always the heroes we imagine, but they were undeniably crucial to the feudal system. Alright, let's shift our focus to the serfs, the unsung heroes of feudalism. These folks worked long, grueling hours on the land, ensuring their lords, and by extension, the entire system, had food and resources. Economically, serfs were the backbone. They farmed, built infrastructure, and kept the wheels of feudalism turning. But this wasn't some voluntary gig. Serfs were obligated to give a portion of their produce to their lord, who in return provided protection and governance. And it wasn't all smooth sailing. Serfs faced exploitation, heavy labor, and limited freedom. Some resisted, through collective action or by fleeing to towns. It was a tough life, but their contributions were foundational to the feudal economy. Feudalism sounds tidy on paper, but in practice, it was anything but. the ideal system often clashed with messy realities. Personal ambitions, local disputes, and broken contracts frequently disrupted the feudal order. For instance, vassals didn't always fulfill their obligations, and lords could abuse their power. Disputes over land and loyalty were common and sometimes led to violent conflicts or lengthy court cases. The system worked until it didn't. And when it didn't, chaos followed. So, what brought feudalism to its knees? Several factors played a role. First, the Black Death decimated Europe's population, drastically reducing the labor force. With fewer workers, the system couldn't function as before. Then came urbanization. The rise of towns and trade offered alternatives to the rigid feudal hierarchy. People moved to cities, and economic power began shifting away from lords and toward merchants. Finally, centralized monarchies emerged, consolidating power and reducing the influence of feudal lords. Kings no longer needed to rely on a patchwork of vassals, they had standing armies and bureaucracies instead. Even as feudalism declined, its legacy endured. The hierarchical structure influenced later systems of governance, including constitutional monarchies. Its cultural imprint can still be seen in traditions, literature, and even modern class systems. And let's not forget its role in paving the way for the Renaissance and the rise of modern nation-states. Feudalism may be a relic of the past, but its echoes still shape our world today. If you enjoyed this deep dive into feudalism, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, and hit that subscribe button. Your support helps us keep uncovering the truth behind history. And hey, if you're hungry for more, check out our other videos on medieval Europe and beyond. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.